Hey guys, this is my video on how to work with polycarbonate. I've been working in my garage for the past couple of months with it. I'm trying to determine how best to use everything, and found a lot of the videos weren't very helpful online. So I'm going to go into some things. Polycarbonate I'm using is called Macrolon. It's all the same polycarbonate. It's all built the same. But I didn't really get a lot of information off online. A lot of stuff that I did was from trial and error, and it's looking like my products ended up becoming injected molded, but I figured I'd share what I learned about working with polycarbonate. And first of all, how to cut polycarbonate. If you're going to cut straight pieces, this first tool in the picture is what they call a manual shear. You can pick them up cheap at Harbor Freight or Northern Tool, but you can put it in. I built a jig here to cut certain sizes for me. But you put that guy in there, push it down, and it gives you a perfect cut. Nice and smooth on the end. Oh, there it is. And you get a nice cut. So for cutting straight pieces like these rectangles, I would suggest the manual shear. I had to cut circles too, so I needed circles for my project. I started out with made a makeshift router table out of wood, mounted a router to it, and then I cut out squares, drilled a hole in the middle of the square, used the same drill bit that I drilled a hole in the square with, drilled a hole into the router table. You can see all the holes from all the different times, and then just turned the square against the flush cutting router bit to make my circles. And I'd do a stack of 3 or 4 at a time. And if you're going to do that, I recommend wearing some heavy duty rubber gloves like Playtex rubber gloves. It really helps you hold on to the polycarbonate because the blade can grab it and make them spin on you and it cuts your finger. So wear rubber gloves. It helps hold on to it if you're going to do the router table method. The router table made a mess and a lot of racket. So for $75 I found I could have a die made. So I had a circle cutting die made at a die company here in Houston. And I bought a 6-ton arbor press. If you look online and read the PDFs that come with the polycarbonate, you'll learn there's a math formula in there. And ever how thick your polycarbonate is and ever how long your cut is, so the whole length of your cut, there's a math formula to calculate how many tons of pressure you need to do a die cut. Mine came out close to 3 tons. I had bought a 1-ton arbor press and I took it back and traded it in and got a 6-ton arbor press. So I built this wooden jig. It clamps on to this press. This press was less than $100 at Harbor Freight. If you die cut it, you need another piece of thick polycarbonate for a back cut on. You put your strip of polycarbonate in. I take my die. It goes into my little jig as well. You sandwich it with a chunk of steel. You got steel on the top, piece of steel on the bottom, and then you just start jacking it and start snapping out circles. That's what I chose to do with that. So that's how I made straight pieces, and that's how I made circular pieces. Then I needed to form this stuff into the things I needed. Everybody online says use a heat gun. No, if you read the PDFs and all the information that comes from the polycarbonate, you learn you got to heat both sides. A woman's flat iron is the best tool for this. So I'm going to try to do this one-handed while I do this for you on the camera. I'm going to take this flat piece here. It's got adjustable temperatures on it. I've got it set to 419 so it'll heat quick. I'm going to put it in there. Sorry for the bad cameras. This is not what I do. I don't film stuff. And I hold it in there and keep it sandwiched about 8 to 12 seconds. You kind of wiggle it and you can tell when it's getting soft. And there she goes. She's getting soft. Use vegetable oil to keep your gun greased so it don't stick. You have about 3 to 5 seconds to work with it, and use a pipe, form it, and like I said, 3 to 5 seconds, and I formed a curve just like I want. And that's how the best way to bend polycarbonate is to heat both sides. Tried, people online say put it in the oven. No, that don't work good. Tried the heat gun. That's still like cold bending. It's still got to bend it hard and you get spring back. Also, that die helps me build my angles. I also need a sharp 90 because I'm building like a little belt clip design. So as you can see here on this one, I got a little 90-degree on this device. So all I do is heat a small piece of the end of the plastic, and then I can tell, like I said, 8 to 12 seconds, depending on the temperature of your flat iron. Until it gets hot, I'll pull it out, put it in, and I'm going to give it a bend, keep it flush on the wood so it's nice and straight. 3 to 5 seconds to cool, and there's my 90-degree. Okay, and then what I do is, this is a piece of scrap. It's kind of short, but I would heat the middle, and after I do, I hook it on that screw real quickly, and then I bend it around that pencil, which gives me my little belt clip design. So to bend polycarbonate, I recommend, if it's small pieces and you can get away with it, buy a women's flat iron, heat both sides at the same time. 375 works good for that. So for cutting techniques, painting polycarbonate, best paint is kind of expensive, but you can get these big cans from a hobby store where they do RC cars, because they sell Lexan bodies. This stuff's like $7 or $8 a can. I'm going to be experimenting with some other plastic paints as well. So that's the painting process of it. There's something else I wanted to share with you guys that I'd learned too. So that's bending it, cutting it, that's painting it. Oh yeah, most important, if you make two pieces, how do you glue them together? Well, that's another pain in the butt. I glued them together, wrote it all out, did it a dozen different ways. Had to throw them all away because I sat there and broke them all apart. This is everything that I've tried here. So I should have been more prepared for this video. But of course, I tried the Weld-On 16, which is designed for gluing polycarbonate together. Wasn't impressed with that. That didn't work good. Of course, always in my garage is Gorilla Glue and JB Weld. They did okay, but no, they were far from doing what they were supposed to do. I got Loctite Flexible. That worked kind of good, but you could still peel it apart if you pulled on it real good. Outdoor adhesive from Loctite, that wasn't any good. The best I found for what I was doing was the Loctite epoxy for plastic, because I'm kind of gluing a curved piece to a flat piece, and it's kind of a complicated glue up. I have a jig made up to make it happen, but I found that the Loctite epoxy worked best. It actually worked better than the Weld-On 16 that they say is for Teflon, and I tried it many different ways. So when I tried all these parts, I tried it by sanding the parts, putting them together, not sanding the parts, putting them together, clamping the parts together, not clamping the parts together. I just tried it all, and out of all the experimentation that I went through for gluing this Lexan together is the epoxy by Loctite plastic stuff. And if you do that, you kind of wet both sides. That way it gives it a chance to soften the plastic up. And I do suggest clamping it. Clamp work good. Thanks for viewing the video. I hope that helps anybody else who's out there trying to work with this polycarbonate stuff. And I was able to buy a 4x8 sheet of this for about $70 from my local plastic store. I had them cut it in half from a 4x8 to two 4x4s, so it was easier for me to handle, because I had to rip it up on my little personal Ryobi table saw. So I had to rip two different widths. I ripped a width that I was going to cut circles out of, and I ripped a width that I cut my little belt clips out of. So I know the belt clip needs to be about 3 inches long, 4 inches long, which is what this is. And then when I put this in the cutter, I cut it to 3/4 inches wide, which gives me exactly what I want. So I hope this helps people out that are working with polycarbonate and trying to do little projects in their garage.